Hi, welcome back to another episode of Chris Dyer's Creative Friends, the super awesome podcast show where me, your artist friend Chris Dyer, talks to all his amazing creative friends. Today I'm in beautiful Nevada City, California. I'm visiting my friend David, the Polish ambassador, who's a really talented music producer, and we had a really nice, deep conversation out here in his land in California. So I hope you will enjoy this. Blessings!
The world is burning, got to make amends. Walk on the sunny side with a positive lens. Talks about passion between the women and the men. Chris Dyer and his creative friends. Darling, ooh, ooh,
Dave, thank you so much
Boom.
for having me over your
buddy.
beautiful round home.
Yeah.
And thanks for letting us crash in the cabin in the back on this land. What is this land that we're living in? It's like some kind of permaculture dream?
Yeah. This is it's the execution of a vision many years in the making. So I've been here for about 10 years now.
Okay.
And there's a few different structures on this land, and over the past decade, it's gone through a few iterations, some being more private and then some being more welcoming of community, in that we would have some folks living on this land with us. Right now it's pretty simple. It's just myself, my cousin Matt, and another friend living here. And then we have a cabin for guests. So there's a constant flow of people coming through here. But there was a point where we were doing a full-on community thing, and we had 11 people living here. And it was like living on land with people and friends and people you care about was always a dream, right? I think it's a lot of people's dream, and then they do it, and they're like, maybe for at least half the people, it no longer is a dream anymore because it's hard. It's not easy. It's one of those things. It's kind of like, it's like touring. Like, when I go on tour, it's like the best thing and the worst thing all at the same time. You get the fan interaction and you get to share your art, and then like 2 hours later, you're tumbling down a highway, like trying to sleep, and you can't sleep, and it's like the worst, And living in community, it's similar in that way, in that you get to create and build together and exchange ideas and cross-pollinate in so many beautiful ways. And then you have to go into the dumps with people and like kind of deal with a lot of stuff that's not that easy to deal with because you have so many different personalities and different people coming into the fold. So basically this land, in a nutshell, is an exploration in all of that, in community. Different shades of community, yeah.
At least in the setup you got it's kind of like a little villa where everybody's got their own little houses or living environments, and you don't have to be in the same house with roommates per se.
That's true. Yeah, there is sort of for some people there's like a shared area, but yeah, it's somewhere in between private and communal, I guess I would say. Yeah.
So what makes this a permaculture? I know you're into permaculture, and we've seen some things like that toilet back there. Tell me about what's permaculture for you and how you've incorporated it into this land.
Permaculture, I think, because I did the permaculture action tour in 2014, which was amazing and a life highlight in a lot of ways. People have they've associated me with that word. I'm not a permaculturalist. That was a vision of many people coming together, and I was sort of the artist that was performing. Just to claim that I'm a permaculturalist wouldn't be authentic, but what I am is a homesteader, and I've done farming and gardening, and I've had animals out here, and I have 50 fruit trees right now, and I manage about 25 acres of land out here. So, it's It's not permaculture, but it's doing. I guess I could say it for me in my moral compass. It's like doing work that is meaningful. So yeah, it's been amazing. I've had 7 sheep, 7 goats. I think we got it up to 30 chickens. We were giving milk and eggs to neighbors and friends. Fruit trees. I just went and checked the persimmon trees, and there's like 100 persimmons on one of the persimmon trees. And yeah, it's fun getting your hands dirty and growing food, and then being able to eat it. To reap the fruits of your labor, so to speak.
What's the importance of being self-sufficient and living aligned with nature?
That's an interesting question. The importance, it depends.
Like obviously, you've chosen to live out in the country and have goats. Why?
Yeah, well, I think it varies for person to person. Like, to say that it is objectively important, I don't think is true, because we live in a time where for some people it's not important. They can live in a condo in downtown San Francisco, and they can go get organic food at the farmer's market. So it's not necessarily important for everybody. For me in particular, it was important because I was traveling so much, and I'm in front of a computer a lot with composing. I mean, I'm kind of addicted to composing. Like, you guys may have noticed, like, I'm in the studio, even when I have friends here, I'm like in the studio a lot of the time making music. So to balance that out, for me to feel fullness and feel like, I don't know, some sort of stability within myself or groundedness, I need to partake in things that are not digital, right? I need to create, I need to build things, I need to I built this outdoor kitchen out here, and one of my friends, we built a little cottage up here, and, chipping away at terraces, getting out with a pickaxe, planting trees. So that sort of stuff, it balances out the computer work for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah.
What about the area? I believe we're in Nevada City, and it seems very lovely out here. You took us out hiking today.
Yeah.
We swam in the river.
Yeah.
Tell me why you chose to be here.
I think I chose to be here because I'm not really a city person at this point in my life, even though it would be helpful for my career, I guess. There would be too much compromise in my quality of life to be in a city. So at this point in my life, career is definitely secondary to me enjoying life. That wasn't always the case. I'm 42 now, so maybe something has changed, and I'm like, okay, I've done a bunch of work. Now I can rest a little bit more, and I can enjoy the river, and I can enjoy more community, and going to farmers markets regularly, and having land and having animals. But that's the main reason I ended up here. I mean, there's a longer story there too, because originally I'm from Philadelphia, and I kind of made my way over here over the past couple decades. So yeah, that's maybe there's some stories there for another time. But in general, it's just because I need to be in the country, but close enough to an airport, like an hour away, so I can do my work.
Okay. So you don't enjoy city life so much anymore?
I enjoy city life for a weekend, but for living there, I don't think I could do it. I think, so when I moved from the Bay, because I was living in Oakland 11 years ago, so I've been up here for 10 years.
Okay.
And when I moved from the Bay, I said to myself, you know what? I love the Bay, and I do. I love city life. And what I said to myself was, okay, I'm gonna move to the country, and then I'm gonna go back, and I'm gonna stay connected. I'm gonna go back once a month and hang out and just rent a place or stay with a friend for a weekend. And I said that, and I never did it once I got up here. And I think what happened was something that maybe could have only happened through experience of sort of living and grounding into I guess the countryside for me, and the way my whole system is oriented, my whole nervous system calmed down, and I didn't realize that is what was going to happen when I left the city, because every day is relative to the day before, right? So I wasn't even maybe aware that my nervous system was on high alert in a city. And then I get here, and after a month, I'm like, whoa, I'm sleeping longer, I'm resting more, I'm not thinking I need to go do something all the time. So once I started feeling that, I was like, hell no, I'm not going back to the city for for too long. But I'll go back. I'll visit friends, and sometimes I'll go for a weekend that's not even related to to work, and I'll just go hang out in a cool hotel in a cool neighborhood, and maybe just take in some art, check out some music.
So maybe you noticed that you were a little bit more anxious in your city life?
I think so.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder how many of us, because I think all of us are anxious to some degree. I know I am. And if we only perhaps went to a more natural way of living, that would calm us down. But probably that's not the equation for everybody, since there's so many of us. Some of us have to, be grouped up in cities.
Yeah.
So we actually met on that tour of the permaculture tour. Well, we didn't really meet, but we were there together. I don't know if you know, Envision 2015, you organized some kind of effort to go to a little school on top of a mountain near Uvita, Costa Rica, and you were getting people to work on their land and stuff. I don't know how much you directed it, but I knew like, oh, the Polish ambassador is doing these things.
Yeah.
And I was teaching an art class. Since I know Spanish, I was teaching them art. I painted them a mural.
Yep.
And you were out there in the garden making them some like cool garden situation.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Totally, I remember that.
I don't know if I was on your radar yet.
Yeah, well, you were on my radar, and I remember coming and saying hi. It was brief.
Okay.
But I remember there was a mutual respect, and it was like, awesome, thanks for being here. And
yeah, nice.
Yeah, it's cool.
Thanks. We only really hanged out properly the next year in Chicago at, what was it, North Coast?
North Coast, yeah.
North Coast, yeah. You took me out on a date. You drove me around with a golf cart. And we went out, to eat at a little merch spot. It was cool. Thank you.
Thanks, yep.
But tell me about this permaculture. Even though you're not a permaculturist and you don't want to assign yourself titles, that's totally fine.
Okay.
But obviously, you care about people. You care about using structures like permaculture to improve people's lives. Why a DJ, and this is a question that's almost, rhetorical, but I want you to explain to me, like, you're there to play music, but you're like, okay, 1 second, everybody. We're a bunch of gringos going to this like country. Is there something we can do other than just party? Can we go and help maybe this little school on top of a mountain near Uvita? I think you're the only one from this whole festival, super cool scene with lots of money going into it that kind of has done that and be like, all right, how can we use this energy and people and good intentions, and we're all patting each other on the back about we're the good guys and we're the conscious woke people, and what the fuck are we doing? You actually did something with that effort. So tell me what was going through your mind and how was the experience?
Cool. Well, thanks, and good question. How do I answer that? Let's see. I feel like at different points of our lives, we're different people, right? And we have different energies running through us. And my 30s were, I would say, a bit more about me speaking publicly about where my music comes from. It was just the tide that was running through me that needed to come out in a certain way. So I would kind of talk about, I write music for these reasons, and if I write it for these reasons, I'd like to see it help in certain ways. So that was kind of how that all unfolded. It was really just more of a byproduct of who I was at that time, and the music was the catalyst to facilitate some sort of change in different communities, or helpful, maybe not even change, but just like a helpful vibration in the communities we would go through. And yeah, it's interesting to reflect on that and see what has transpired over the last, say, decade, because a lot of people know me for that, and people that are following me closely know that I don't actually do that anymore. I don't do the action days as they were called. I think we did maybe like 50 to 100 over like 3 years, which was pretty rad.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, so we definitely, I scratched that itch for sure. And I think now, just going back to like the different phases of our lives, like this phase of my life is a little less outgoing in that way, but still wanting to create good And I think I've turned my efforts into exploring what it feels like to be uh, growing food on my own land now, and like having, occasionally I'll have work parties with friends who will come over, and then, when there's fruit to be had, those are going to be the first people I call, and I'm like, hey, there's 300 peaches, like come get some peaches, and kind of doing that work in more of a micro, more sustainable and more grounded way. A lot of times with the action days, they were so cool, and we would light people up in these amazing ways. And the amount of times I still have people come back and say, "Hey, I was at your action day in Eugene, and like it actually redirected my life." That still happens pretty regularly.
Mm-hmm.
But the counter to those action days, just looking at all sides of the coin, is we would come through and we'd do something, and a lot of times what it would really be was inspiration for people, because maybe 3 months later we would find out that thing that we did was no longer being tended to, right? So like I want to be real with it, and not paint like just that it was all perfect in this beautiful picture because it was cool. But
Yeah.
I think the real juice was just igniting something in people,
Mm-hmm.
and not necessarily like, oh, we changed the world in some way, or we like changed
Yeah.
physically this area. It was more
Yeah.
a catalyst for people to learn something about themselves.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
it's a vibe you put out there, and I'm sure inspired many people, as you said, and that's enough sometimes. And when it comes to activism like that, I know that shit's exhausting. Like, because you're giving yourself, plus you're focusing on like the problems of the world. It's like, oh, the world's sick, so we gotta do something, and it's hard living that way. Like it's so I feel like activism is something that people can do for a few years, and then hopefully somebody else takes the post
Yeah.
and continues the work, so you can live according to the ethics that you preached at that time, or worked at that time, but more in your little environment. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So in the same way that you had that chapter with the action days, I'm sure you have many different chapters in your music. Your music seems to be like, I don't want to say like all over the place, because it would sound like you don't have a focus, but it goes through different movements. Like some of it is certainly electronic dance.
Yeah.
Some of it seems hip hop. Some is more like world. Some has lyrics. Some is instrumental.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your journey with music and the different influences you've had through all these years. Like, how long have you been doing this music to start with?
Let's see. I put out my first record in 2006 or 7. And yeah, the music has jumped all over the place. Like it started from me loving Super Nintendo so much, so much that I couldn't only play it all day. I had to make music that sounded like it.
Oh yeah, you
Sounded
made
like-
8-bit music.
Yeah, I was making like
16-bit music.
8-bit and 16-bit music for my first 2 or 3 albums. And
No.
yeah.
Whoa.
And then it
I
kind
gotta
of
listen to that. Is that on Spotify?
yeah.
No.
Yeah, I'll send them to you. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, they're not albums. I mean, back in the day, people were listening to them, and that's kind of how I got my start. But at this point, they're not getting nearly as much traction as the newer stuff,
I didn't even know it existed. Were you doing that in your Philadelphia, or you're already in Oakland?
I was living in Chicago at
Chicago.
that point,
Okay.
actually. But yeah, I think I'm influenced by all sorts of things in life. But as far as music, I mean, I love so many different types of music. Like I'll listen to world music, and I'll listen to like, I don't know, some chill out electronic or some blues or like folk. I mean, there's no genre that I'm like, oh, no, it's like music is like food for me. It's like I want to sample the most delicious music that the world has to offer,
Right.
So I'm taking in lots of different music, and for me, it's like I've just taken a different path, and sometimes it's interesting, we all have our questioning of of which path may have been the right one. Occasionally, I'll say to myself, I'll look at the electronic landscape, and I'll see artists that have like gotten really big, and they all kind of they focus on a sound, and they like really, really refine that one sound. And to the point where if you think of the name of that artist, it's like, oh, they make that kind of music. And for me, I don't know. I may have shot myself in the foot in a sense. I mean, granted, I'm doing good, and I'm so grateful for where I'm at. But sometimes I wonder if because I've gone, like I'll do a chill album, I'll do like a 16-bit album, I'll do a world album, I'll do a reggae album, and like if you listen to these albums and you don't know that it's by me, most people will say it's a different artist if you don't tell them who it is. Um, and I think that what's happened is I've gained a really interesting type of fan that's more on board with me for the journey, and they're not necessarily on board for a particular style of music. It's like you don't really know what you're gonna get when you come to one of my shows.
Yeah.
And I think that excites people. And I think that I've probably lost some fans along the way and gained new ones, because it's like if someone finds me through pushing through the pavement and they hear like the world hip hop vibe that was through that, and then they listen to my new album, Super Chill Goats, it's just like electronic bangers, you know? And there's world elements to it, but it's not as like chilled out, and it's more hype, you know?
Right.
So I guess my point is like, I love what I'm doing, and I'm gonna keep I'm gonna keep exploring, because like it makes it so I don't get bored. Right.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing, is like as an artist, you want to stay, as long as you're good financially, and you're happy, you're probably not so concerned with staying relevant. You want to channel and do what feels good to you as an artist.
Right.
Right.
That's the true artist.
Yeah.
I think I'm your kind of fan because I like variety.
Yeah.
And it's cool when an artist, may it be visual or vibrational, finds their voice and they rock it and they take it as far as they can, but eventually it plateaus, and then it gets boring, and it's like, okay, I already saw that painting, I already heard that album, like give me something new but also good. Particularly I try new mediums, and I feel like your different albums is almost like, okay, well, this album was a watercolor album, and this was an oil painting album, and this album's a collage, and this one will be acrylics, and this one will be spray paint.
I like it.
And you might be better at spray paint than watercolor, and some people might be like, I'm not vibing with this watercolor shit. But it's like,
Yeah.
just fucking wanted to paint watercolors. And I'm sorry, dude. That's what
Yeah, totally.
That's what you had to express in this day. What would you say is your most popular album from what you've heard?
I mean, Pushing Through the Pavement, I think it's still like, if there's like the Let the Rhythm song that a lot of people know, and I think they find me through. Yeah, I would say that's probably the most popular album. That was 2015. And then interestingly, I think my second most is an album I released in 2020 during the pandemic, which is called Time's Running In, which is sort of like, it was my first real exploration of merging world music with like more, I don't know what to say, like edgy electronic.
Okay.
Kind of like more, I feel like Pushing Through the Pavement was exploring a lot of major chords, and it was like very uplifting and positive, and Time's Running In definitely was exploring more minor chords. And more just like a different energy, like an energy that's a little more like, oh, I want to get up and move to this, and maybe in a different way. Like the Pushing Through the Pavement is like kind of more bouncy, and you still want to move to it, but just in a different way.
Right. So would you say one was more like good vibes, and the other one's not necessarily bad vibes, but like, as you said, edgier? Perhaps it's a little bit more depressed, as 2020 was, but also like it's got that anxiety of like, let's get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. It's an album, and the music is more stirring in a certain way. Like if you're feeling like you would need to like get through something, it's a good album to put on, because it'll allow you to maybe go through your own process a little bit more than, say, an album that's all major chords, right? Like when you get into albums that are more uplifting like that, it's like you put those on when you have like I don't know, barbecue with friends, right? And then maybe like if you have like some sort of dance practice or something, you put on an album that kind of can take you a little more inward, right? So different music for different times.
Did the second one have lyrics in it, or was it just instrumental?
It's mainly instrumental. There's a few features. Nitty Scott's on a track. Zion I is on a track.
Sick.
Yeah, rest in peace. He died last year. And
That's great that you could get him.
he's great.
Yeah.
No, I mean he's a legend. He's, in my opinion,
That's
he's one of the
Oakland,
best. Oakland, yeah.
Yeah. What about Mr. Liff? Is he also from Oakland?
No, Mr. Lift is from Boston originally. I know he lived in the Bay, and then I think he lived in Seattle for a while. But we're still in touch. He's a homie.
That's awesome. He's
Yeah.
legendary.
Oh,
Well,
he's
Sai
great.
and I also, like, these are like
Yeah.
90s hip hop artists
Yeah.
that I listened to. And then when I saw him playing on your albums, I was
Yeah.
like, oh, this guy knows what's up.
Yeah. I mean, underground hip hop. Like, there's only. I mean, I love hip hop. I have a hard time getting into what's popular right now. But there's an era, like the golden era of hip hop, all the way up to, I don't know, like maybe 2010. There's just so much, and it's still happening. It's just, it's not
Commercial.
It's not, well, yeah, and there's not as many opportunities for the people that are making that kind of art. So I don't think there's as many people doing it. You know what I mean? It's like there needs to be willingness for people to spend money on an underground hip hop show for people to want to make underground hip hop. It's just kind of the nature of our society. But I mean, shoot, like Mr. Liff and I've worked with the Grouch. Like I've worked with I've worked with a lot. Cool Keith. Like
You worked with Cool Keith?
yeah, I've done a
What?
couple songs.
No.
Yeah, I'll send him to
How
you.
was that?
Awesome.
Really?
Yeah, he's great.
He seems so weird.
He's very weird. Yeah, no, he's super talented lyricist, and yeah, we haven't had too many exchanges. It's mainly been by email, but he's like super professional and did an awesome. There's a song called Electric Mind, which is actually out right now. It's just a single that's going to be on a forthcoming album, so you have to check that out.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Fucking Black Elvis, yeah.
I know, man.
That's
He's legend.
awesome. Dr. Octagon. Like, he's got so many names, that guy.
Oh man, he's the best.
Oh, once again, this is just like amazing 90s hip hop that for me is the best kind of hip hop.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's so lucky that you get to, make music with them.
I love weaving that. I mean, their style is so on point. So I'm having fun weaving that vibe from like whatever early 2000s to 2010 era, and weaving that into more modern electronic, and it sounds great.
And I went to Mr. Liff's Spotify today to see what he was offering, and his collab with you was his #1 song. And I'm like, oh shit, like his, Polish Ambassador collab is more popular than fucking Arise or something like old school.
That one got really popular. It's funny. I love the song, but it's like I look back to Pushing Through the Pavement, and it's not even my favorite. I mean, there's another Lift song that I like better. But anyways, for whatever reason, it caught the attention of a lot of people at a certain time, and it just, I don't know. It's taken on a life of its own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can do what you think is good, and then what resonates with people,
I know.
you're not them.
I know, totally.
So they might like something different.
That's funny.
So what's your current flavor of expression? Like what you played in St. Pete. So you recently played in St. Pete. Paulina and me caught you out there. Even had you over for brunch and Nintendo the morning after. It was really fun. But there, you seem like you're playing more like house, right?
Yeah, I was playing a lot of house music. I'm making a lot of house music right now. I mean, I would say my set is about half house and then half bass music. Like, and then a couple other styles woven in. So what I've been doing over the past maybe 5 years or so is I'll start at around 100 BPM with something that is pretty groovy, and I'll work my way up to house and then I'll stay in a house groove for maybe a solid half hour, maybe more, depending on how long the set time is. And then I'll transition way down to like 70 BPM. And that's kind of when more like the bass music, hip hop stuff will start to come in. And then I'll go from 70 BPM back to about 110 and try to close with something in between.
Okay, that's smart. Because so you work them, they get tired. Okay, let's give them a little break.
Yep.
But let's give him one more little go.
Exactly.
And let's ease him off.
Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah.
Because that's how I feel when I'm dancing. I was like, I love this, but I'm fucking sweating here. And can you just put like a slow song to like chill it out?
Yeah, totally.
Do you ever get into drum and bass?
I've been a little bit, yeah. I have a few tracks that, drum and bass is what, like 180 BPM, so it's a lot of drum and bass can work with hip hop. So it's kind of like double time hip hop. So I have some songs that are around like 90 BPM, and then I'll halfway through the song I'll kind of transform it into a drum and bass song for like a minute or so, and then maybe go back.
Right.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And how are fans reacting? Perhaps a fan that goes for like a chill hip hop vibe, and all of a sudden they're dancing to house. You said you might have pushed some fans away, but like, do you care a little bit about the reaction of the audience? You must to some degree, but mostly it's like, well, but this is what I feel like expressing today, so I'm going to do it and hope for the best.
Yeah, no, I definitely care. And I guess fortunately for me, the sets that I've been playing they're being received really, really well. And I think in general, in the live music world, like people that come out to shows, they talk with one another and they have friends in other places, and they'll say, like, they'll know, okay, Polish is coming to St. Pete, and they'll check in with a friend that was in for my last Denver show, and they'll say, what's Polish's set like? And they'll be like, oh, you need to go. Or maybe sometimes they're like, oh, it's a little more chill, maybe sit this one out. But I think that the world of live music, like, information spreads pretty fast amongst fans of live music that are wanting to know what a current artist is putting out, or how their live performance is.
Right. Well, that's smart for those people.
Yeah.
I just kind of go because I like the general vibe of a performer, and then you get what you get. And
yeah. Well, there's some of that too, for sure.
Right. But in the same way that perhaps some people are expecting something and it's like, oh, he didn't give me what I want, I'm moving on. Perhaps you're also like, well, I'm not boring, and you come every year and I'll give you a different flavor. And it's like going to a restaurant and you're not always eating the same plate. You're trying new varieties, and that keeps you going to the restaurant. It's like, oh, he's got more.
Totally.
And hopefully that's what's kept you relevant and popular through these years, as maybe some DJs found their sound, and that sound became old and they went off with the trends.
Yeah. I think that's true. I guess one thing just to add on to that is, the one thing I think you're gonna always get when you come to one of my shows is you're gonna dance. Like that's sort of the central theme. I don't really play too much of I make a lot of chill music, but I don't really play too much of that. Maybe at the very beginning or the very end of a set. But in general, if you come to a show, you're probably gonna sweat. You're probably not gonna need to go to your yoga class tomorrow. You're gonna get after it.
Nice. Well, I think that's what people want when they go to a show.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know. People got different intentions for going out. Maybe some people want to go out and meet some girls. Others want to sniff some stuff. I don't know. I go because if I do go out, which is not that often, I would like to dance and have a good time. And dancing's such a weird thing. You're just fucking shaking your body around, like, like, what does it mean?
Yeah.
But humans do that shit. Like, we're the kind of animal that needs to do that. Maybe a couple animals out there also do it, but we're the kind of animals that need to do this, and somehow it feels good, and somehow it's like a spiritual liberation and a tribal connection with your spiritual self that's important for us.
Yeah. I think you hit it. It's like, people go to sports and they like cheer, and there's camaraderie and like looking around and seeing other people cheering. And for certain people, there's a camaraderie in going around and kind of like nodding your head together and like moving your body together, right?
Connection with strangers that you wouldn't have as you walk down the street and you look at the ground and you rarely say hi to a stranger.
Yeah.
But you can do it at a show. It's like, oh, we all like TPA.
Yeah. Relatability is the key, right? It's like as soon as we find relatability with someone else, if we're at like a party, all of a sudden it's like fascination of that person opens up, because it's like, oh, you like the same thing I do, like, and then you kind of explore it together, right?
Right. That's what I like about, say, Chris Dyer fans. They show it on their sleeve. They use it on their clothes, their hats, and then they recognize them. It's like, oh, you like Chris Dyer arts too? It's like, let's talk.
Yeah.
And then they become best friends. Sometimes people have married after like, oh, I met my wife because she was using one of your dresses, and then we saw we were resonant aliens. And
well, it's so cool because like the art that we make and a lot of other people make these days, it's so niche that like if you like Chris Dyer and you see someone else, you're at least gonna like something about each other, and you're gonna be able to like have some sort of cool conversation,
Right.
right? Which is cool.
Yeah. It's not like you're Taylor Swift. And there's so many motherfuckers that like that you know, I'm always ratting on poor Taylor Swift. I saw a Taylor Swift show. Well, I didn't see a Taylor Swift show. We were in Detroit, and Taylor Swift was playing in town. And everywhere you were, it was people with their cowboy hats.
Wow.
And, you know, it was interesting.
You could play Taylor Swift right now for me, and I wouldn't actually know who it is.
I'm
so out of touch with that. With
I
like
don't
pop
know
world.
her music, but a lot of people do.
Yeah,
And sometimes
yeah.
I'm like, whoa, what is this thing that reaches most normal people?
Yeah.
That, you know, I wish my mini culture was as beloved as that. But as you said, because it's like a smaller, best kept secret, niche thing, when you do find somebody else that's like, if I walk down the street and I even see somebody with an t-shirt or something, you're like, whoa, you look odd. Like,
Yeah.
there's not a lot of people, even though he's very big and popular in the scene.
Sure.
But in the real world,
Yeah.
that's not like a common thing.
Yeah, totally.
Even just visionary art in general, if you're walking down the street and somebody's using something of any of my friends, I'd be like, whoa, let's talk. Who are you? Like, so that's like, do you feel like with your music, you're creating some kind of, not churchy, but like some kind of spiritual gathering that do you have a particular intention with what you're doing? You're just playing to make people have a fun time, or is there a spiritual aspect of yourself that's like, I'm gonna channel the Most High through me, so they can also feel the Most High and access that higher self, that higher part of themselves?
I like to think that that's happening without me having to like intentionalize it. It's almost like if I can. This is kind of meta because I'm like thinking about it right now. But anyways, it's like the more I can get into the studio and operate from a place of like a clean slate of like feeling good and going into creation without thinking about an intention, I almost feel like something even more pure will come through. And then if I share that with the people that want to hear it, they're able to receive it from a place that maybe they're coming where they're not thinking so much, and they're dancing, like it's having some sort of impact on their being that is helpful.
Right.
It's I don't know. It's a little confusing as I speak it, but maybe that makes a little bit of sense.
Maybe giving it intention is overthinking it and intellectualizing it, and you just want to be the open, empty cup.
Exactly.
It's like, I'm the empty cup. I will do what I'll do and let whatever has to pass through me. And hopefully it's something good. We all would want that.
Yeah.
And hopefully that goodness can pass on to others. I don't think that could escape your general intention.
Yeah.
Or at least that's how I imagine. Like,
Yeah.
perhaps some performers are like, I'm going to channel the fucking satanic vibes and get these people to destroy the stadium. Like, we've seen that in Woodstock 99 and shit.
Well, it's like the intent, like maybe the intention is to not have any intention, because then you create something that's maybe that much more pure, and then people that hear it, it resonates in a more pure way as they need it to resonate for them. It's not like it's not like encapsulated in my intention and then presented to them. You know what I mean?
Do you feel like in general, as a performer who channels or performs for thousands of people, there's a responsibility of being a good person and like being pure, as you say? Like, do you put a lot of pressure on yourself as like, man, if I'm going to be like giving out my heart to these people, that heart might as well be the best I can offer possible? Or you try to separate them?
That, you know, it's so interesting. If you ask me that in my 30s, I may have a different answer. But at this point, I would almost say that like the more I can say to myself that I'm not responsible to be a good person, the more I end up being a good person. It's almost like if I am having too much chatter, then maybe more anxiety is running about being a good person, and then like maybe I'll arrive to a situation more tense than I would otherwise, and maybe I won't actually be the best person I can be. So it's almost like, just almost trusting that there is good that will come in an interaction, and just letting that be.
Right.
Yeah.
And once again, your general intention is there. You know it. You don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
And you're just allowing things to be without this, like, I'm supposed to be perfect. And if I'm not perfect for the people, then I'm letting them down. And then that has a vibration of guilt, which is not a positive vibration. And
Yep.
well, that's great that you're allowing yourself to be where the fuck you are right now without judgment.
Thanks, man.
And, you know, I always observe you as a well-balanced human being. So, and,
Likewise, buddy.
and no is perfect either way.
No, yeah,
So,
no.
you know,
I have my moments.
Yeah, we try our best and we accept our humanness.
For sure.
So tell me about touring. Do you like go on like long stretched out tours that hit up everything, or you go on quicker spouts of that?
Mostly I do weekend runs. I'll do like maybe Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Some days I'll tack on a Sunday. A couple times over, when I saw you, I was out there for 2.5 weeks on the East. If I'm going to go to the East Coast, I'm probably going to spend at least 2 weeks there because I don't really get out there that often. So try to do Southeast and Northeast when I get out there. I like being able to go out and bang out a few shows and then come back and have like a week or 2 on the land and then go out and do it again. I did the national touring thing for about 5 years where I was on the road for maybe 100 days a year for like 3 of those 5 years, and it was fun. And you know, kind of like I was talking about earlier in the interview, is like one of the most fun and amazing things and one of the worst things is it's just like so intense on your system to be so ungrounded and like so just driving down, not getting good sleep, like maybe having 1 too many drinks the night before and like trying to make it all happen again the next night. And you're just kind of, you know, you're not phoning it in because you love being there, but you're also tired. And it's like when you're tired, like things become less fun. Ultimately. You're
emotionally and physically burning more than you have.
Totally.
So now you take it easier. How important it is to tour and to perform? Could you ever just be like, oh, I'm not gonna perform anymore and just go make a living off streaming? Or is it something that you have to do every year in order to, you know, pay your bills and whatnot?
My guess is if I didn't tour and I just tried to stream, I would be okay for a little while. But I think that like there's so many new people coming in, new artists coming in, you know, the barrier to entry of electronic music is a laptop and like watching tutorials. It's like anybody can do it, which means the entry point is super high, or the amount of people coming in rather is really high into that world. Yeah, I think that like I would need to tour in order for people to keep listening. Over time.
So it's kind of like promotion in a way.
Kind of.
It's stoking the fire of interest.
Yeah.
Because if you just disappear from their faces, then all you got is social media.
Yeah, and like 10 other artists will have come in to that person's field at that point, so they're going to be listening to you less unless you're maybe coming through and showing them you got some new stuff, or I don't know how it all works ultimately, but that's kind of
a mix of everything.
Yeah.
What about social media? Can you just tour and not do social media? I know you quit Instagram at one point.
Yeah.
How was that? Why did you do that?
I quit announcement. And I'm back now. Yeah. But I'm back. I'm kind of back in a different way. Like for those that are paying attention to my social, like I'll do posts when I'm on tour. You know, because I kind of need to promote the show. Yeah. And I'm on these freaking wicked awesome adventures, like. All of a sudden, I'm at this amazing place in Montana, and I'm like, oh, and I'm with a couple friends, so I'm like, let's take a photo and post it, right? Yeah. But it's that I would say is a little more calculated and intentional. It's like, oh, okay, I have a show tonight. Let's go to this cool place, and you know, one small piece of us going to this cool place will be to get a photo, and we put it up, but that's it. Or if I'm like announcing a single, but I don't really do casual posts that are just about my feelings, and you know that's more private for me. But yeah, letting people know about shows and a little glimpses into my life, like that also help promote music and shows.
Yeah. When you quit Instagram, how long was that for?
Oh, I think it was for a couple years. It was for like Facebook and Instagram, I kind of just stopped. It actually was funny because it coincided with the pandemic. It happened before the pandemic that I quit. I think it was like 2019.
Why did you do it?
I kind of thought that like, and I still kind of think this, like that those apps aren't actually that useful for musicians, and the amount of harm that came from it wasn't worth the amount of help that it actually did for a person's career. Specifically,
The harm on you?
yeah, the harm on me.
Like what was harm on you?
I mean, maybe harm's a strong word, but just like the amount of anxiety that it would induce.
What's that kind of harm?
Yeah. Or just like the amount of thinking you need to keep up with the pack, right? It's like sometimes when you tune into Instagram, it's like, oh, my contemporaries are posting about all this stuff. Now I need to do it. Or
Yeah, comparison and
Yeah.
FOMO.
So I kind of just wanted to have a elongated break. I thought the break was going to be forever.
Yeah.
It wasn't, and now it's like I said, I'm coming at it from a new angle. It's more like a lot of times with shows, I have an agreement where it's like they're like, well, if we're going to hire you to do the show, you need to post about it.
Yeah, they want the fame of the producer, musician to reach their audience and
Totally.
get their fans there. It's understandable.
It makes sense, and I'm not hating on anybody that does social media for whatever reason you want. It's amazing and beautiful, and I think we can all agree that there are some pretty obvious pitfalls to social media that we all need to pay attention to individually, and that was sort of me paying attention to it in my own individual way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did your mental health improve when you took that break? How was it not paying attention to social media for 2 years?
Yeah, I think so. I think what it ended up was like me calling friends more, and me like doing more adventures.
Yeah.
Me going to the river more. Like I think a lot of my friends would say I go to the river. I mean, I'm busier than a lot of my friends, and I go to the river more than a lot of my friends because like I don't really give that sort of thing too much energy. I get my work done, I do the studio, and then I'm free. I'm available. I'm like, no, let's go. That's why we work. That's why we work hard.
Let's
we work
enjoy
hard
life.
so we can enjoy. So we don't work hard so we can stress out on Instagram and watch a bunch of stupid shit, you know?
Right. Do you feel though, like when you weren't on social media for a couple of years, that affected your career and your visibility? Maybe you fell off the consciousness of people who perhaps weren't catching you on their show, or they didn't even know you were having a show because you weren't on their video game promoting it?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one to answer. I don't think so. It just so happened that when I let go of that, I was in a place where I was actually only doing 20 gigs a year, and I had been for the past 4 or 5 years, like kind of picking 20 big gigs a year. So I was going to get those 20 big gigs a year, whether or not, just because like Polish Ambassador was still relevant enough that I was going to get those gigs. Now, I do think that so this year I'm going to be up to 40 gigs a year, so doubling that. So if I'm going to go do these smaller shows and I was just in Whitefish, Montana, great place, great show, like 600 people came out and it was awesome. But my point is, if I'm going to go do shows in smaller towns like that, I'll need to promote them a little bit. I'll need to be a little more active in that sphere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's understandable.
Yeah.
I like that you're back, both because I like you as a person, but I think you're hilarious. Your humor side of your project is great.
Thanks.
And it seems like, as you just said, like you're promoting on social media your personality as a musician, and you're not even really promoting David Sugalski. You're promoting the Polish Ambassador, which is a fictional character as far as I know, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, look at this guy who dresses like this, and you're not promoting like, hey, my name's David, and this is how I feel today, kind of like what I do. You just kind of like have them separated. So you mostly like to keep your private life private and your public life public, correct?
Yeah. I do. Yeah. I mean, as evidenced by this is like the first interview or podcast I've done in maybe 5 years.
Yeah, well,
know.
thank you so much for
Oh
doing
yeah.
it. And
No, I mean, like I was saying at the river, it's like, you know, this one's a cool one because it's you and we've established a friendship.
yeah.
So it feels more like we're hanging out talking. Whereas I think like podcasts or interviews, they can kind of,
They're strangers, they don't know you and stuff.
yeah, they're strangers. And also it's like I was saying, like, if I'm going to do a podcast at this point, it's probably going to be because it's just someone I want to hang out with and like chat with.
Well, thank you so much once again.
Yeah, and I think that like podcasts are they're really cool in a lot of ways and really helpful for people. And you know, it's just like one of those things that we pick and choose like what we put our energy towards. And
Right.
for me, this is a good one to do.
Well, there's a lot of medicine to pass, both in your music and in your humor and comedy. That's medicine, and in a conversation. And like, for example, what you just shared about you needing to tend to yourself, and like, you know what? Fuck the attention of everybody else. I need to just like take some time for myself and chill out and be in nature. People listening to that who live in cities who are addicted to the phone, like myself, we need to listen to that and be like, oh damn, this person who I admire musically actually is doing something that I myself am doing. So like, there's a lot of inspiration that can come from this for a lot of people, and that's the intention of this show.
Nice.
So back to a little bit your presentation or communications past the music is your humor side of yourself. So let's start with, you know, when did you get to work in foreign relationships for the country of Poland? What's a Polish ambassador about?
Gosh.
What a strange name for a performer.
It is a strange name.
It's kind of random.
It's very random.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's random. It's random in a way, but once you, I guess I'll give a synopsis of the story.
Yeah.
So my heritage is Polish. My last name is Sugalski. So
Okay.
I'm, you know, among
You
other
are
things,
Polish.
I'm Polish as one. I'm like, you know, a prime example of the melting pot of America. Many things, one of them being Polish. And my last name is a very Polish last name. So I guess I always identified as Polish American because of my last name, right? It's like if your last name is like Minatoli or whatever, you're going to identify as an Italian American growing up.
Yeah.
So that's like a foundational piece in the story. And when I was in college, the whole diving into music for me, was actually underground hip hop and turntablism. And I was really inspired by all these scratch DJs like Rhetmatic and the Beat Junkies and DJ Shadow and
Hell yeah.
yeah, like sort of like that era of turntablism, right? So I wanted to do that.
Okay.
So that's how I started. I would go hunting on all my time off from school at the University of Colorado. I would go to record shops, old record shops like out in the suburbs, and I would collect records and I would bring them home and I would try to sample and I would try to mix songs that were in the same pitch with other songs.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you started as a turntablist.
Yeah.
That's so sick.
Yeah, so that's how it all began for me. And I started doing mixtapes and giving them to friends. And there was one of the records I got was a political comedy record. And they were saying all sorts of things about these different politicians. It was spoken word, so it was like a record from the 70s. You know, people used to listen to records as their way of hearing comedy or like hearing a show or hearing a story. And this was a comedy show, and they were making fun of a Polish ambassador. And on the record, they say, "Here comes the Polish ambassador." So I started like cutting in the Polish ambassador over my mixtapes, and I would put in the ID3 tags of the mixtape the Polish ambassador. So people started passing those mixtapes around.
Yeah.
And then they started calling me that. And so for me, I wasn't taking any of this seriously at all. It was all kind of a joke for me. I was like, oh yeah, I just make mixtapes for my friends.
Yeah.
So then my friends started.
What age is this, by the way?
That was college. So 20, 22, 21, 22.
That's great.
Yeah. So my friends started calling me the Polish ambassador because I was dropping that on the mixtapes.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, you know, from that period for maybe the next 3 years, I was working. I went and took a couple marketing jobs because that was my major. After UC Colorado, I went into some marketing jobs and hated it. so much, but kept making music, and that's when I started making like the 8-bit, 16-bit music. It was really just an outlet for me, and I would put the Polish ambassador in the ID3 tags for the metadata. Again, people started downloading it, and this whole thing that kind of started just as like me screwing around making mixtapes, you know, it year by year, it just became a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger. And now here I am almost like 18 years into it, and it's gotten to the point where I have a career.
What was the point where you're like, oh shit, this thing I started as a just pastime, kind of like joking around, fun thing is actually going to be my main thing? Was there like a moment that you're like, you know, it hit you?
There were a couple moments. It's interesting looking back, and the moment that sticks out the most was actually just being able to pay part of my rent. Like instead of having to, like I was able to pull back hours at a job I didn't like because all of a sudden there was $500 a month coming in from digital royalties. I wasn't even playing shows. So that's kind of something that sticks out in my mind of like, oh wow, like I don't need to do this work over here. And like if I give this more attention, maybe I can pull back all my hours and not actually do any of this job. Yeah. So
nice. What was your music like at that point?
It was the chiptune stuff. Like that was, I mean, my music pretty early on. It got likened to a couple, like what was it? What was the band that used to be there? I think they were called Crystal Castles.
Okay.
And
I think they're from Montreal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't really heard them doing too much anymore.
No, it was like a era.
It was an era. But anyways, my music got likened to a couple of their songs when they were really popular. And in Pandora's algorithm, that meant that whenever someone played Crystal Castles, they were probably going to hear Polish Ambassador.
Yeah.
And that was when everybody was listening to Pandora too, right? So there was like 3 years there where I think that was, people were hearing that, and then my suspicion, I don't really know the actual stream that people found my music, but my suspicion was that people were hearing it there and then buying my music on iTunes when iTunes was like the big thing too.
Nice.
And that was where most of the royalties were coming in. So that was like 2006, 2007, something like that.
So as much as like a music industry that doesn't really sell albums or CDs anymore, the whole streaming platforms has really helped musicians like you get tagged along other things that were working out and give you a chance to find your audience.
Yeah, back then it was really helpful. I think streaming is still helpful. It's such an interesting world, streaming now, than it was back then. Like there's ways to like game the streaming system now that there weren't back then. So it's like a whole different landscape.
What's the difference? What do you mean by game?
The difference is that back then it was like there was just an algorithm that was written by Pandora that would basically say, okay, if this person likes this, then you're going to be able to, we know they're probably going to like this, and so on and so forth. There's all these different things happening now, mainly across Spotify, like playlists, where people they figured out what the algorithm for Spotify is, and it's basically like, well, if your song's in these 8 playlists, we're going to play your song more. So like fake playlists are created, like playlists of people that are on little click farms in like different countries. There's all sorts.
So you can pay like a service, like, hey, make me popular on Spotify.
So much.
Really?
Oh my gosh, it's like, it's never ending. And a lot of the artists that are doing it wouldn't necessarily admit that they're doing it, but like most people that are professionals kind of know. It's like when you see people with, oh, this person has 800,000 monthly listeners, but they sell like 3 tickets at their show in San Francisco. It's like, you can kind of figure out what's going on pretty quickly.
Wow, I never really thought that would, like, but the normal person like me who's listening to the music just looks at the numbers. It's like, wow, like,
exactly.
They got popularity. They're being listened to, like,
totally.
And it's showing up on my playlist or my Discover Weekly, whatever.
If people can figure out how to do that, ultimately I think it's okay, and I think it's
just giving yourself a chance.
They're giving yourself a chance. You're finding out new ways of marketing. You're exploring and exploiting a system in your favor, which is kind of what marketing is.
Right.
Right. So
You're getting it in front of people one way or another. And if the people resonate, then they'll save it to their playlist or they'll go to your show.
Totally.
If not, that's that.
Totally. Yeah. I think that the one era that it can be confusing is like when talent buyers are trying to decide who they want to have at their festival. At this point, there's this new era that's kind of happening right now is like you typically give offers based on how an artist has performed in that region at actual shows. Mm-hmm. Whereas some people might come in and be like, oh, well, our artist has 800,000 monthly listeners. You should pay them this much. It's like, I don't think talent buyers are really falling for that trick as much anymore. Like it's more like, no, how many tickets did you sell last time you were in St. Pete?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Or even how many followers you got on Instagram. Because that can also be bought.
Exactly. Instagram's kind of a little bit of a vanity app too. It's like, it seems to me that pretty pictures more than like good music actually get more hearts. So it's like that impacts the algorithm in a certain way.
Right.
Right. So it's like, I don't know.
But as a musician, do you feel you have also the duty to look for those pretty pictures to go along your music, to lure in or even satisfy the fans who are already on board?
No, I don't feel that, but I don't knock anybody that does feel that. I think it's okay. Like it's kind of like I said, like it's just this whole new world where I don't look at anything that anybody's doing as wrong. It's more just like it can be misleading, like and it can be confusing for potentially the public that thinks an artist is something that they're actually not.
Right.
But it might yield more money. It might make it so they can pay their rent and they can pay their mortgage, because if you have 800,000 listeners, you're probably able to make a living off of Spotify. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You might not be able to go do live shows. It's just, things like monthly listeners aren't a good indication of how many people will actually come out to a live show.
Mm-hmm. But do you find that there's any importance to give a whole package and presentation to your music? Obviously, the music is the meat, and if people don't like the music, well, fuck the rest. But if you got good music, like, is it important for you to, like, you know what? I just made a really great album. I want to go and look for some good visual art to put on the cover or on the posters to really fucking frame it in a way, or inform people what's the vibe that I'm trying to present with the whole vibe of the new album or, music.
I don't know, man. So I do most of my art myself. I do not consider myself a graphic designer, but like I understand the vibration of my music, and I like, my new album it's a photo of me with like 8 psychedelic futuristic goats on, like, flanking me on the left and right. Mm-hmm. It's totally silly. And I don't know that many designers would look at it and be like, that is some good art right there. Yeah. But it totally captures what I'm doing. And it captures like the energy of the show. It's like, oh, you're gonna come to an outer space party. There's gonna be aliens there, and you're gonna have fun.
But almost like the jankiness that you're doing with that's Photoshop, I imagine.
Yeah, or like Canva, Photoshop,
Right, but like you're doing, it's like home, like do-it-yourself kind of vibes. Kind of goes with that vibe of like the Polish ambassador, the crazy character that hangs out with goats. He doesn't need to have Photoshop skills or that perhaps is part of the visual presentation that you're trying to. Doesn't have to be a glossy, like, here I am in my, I don't know, like there's no right or wrong.
Yeah, totally.
As long as it's aligned with you.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's different for different artists, and like if someone was an artist that was just making chill music that they just wanted to have played in like really cool hip cafes, like they might do something a bit more elegant for their art, right? It kind of depends on what angle you're going for. For me, it's like the whole reason I do what I do is to have fun and to have people get loose and get silly. So typically, not always, but typically my art, at least on like tour posters, will correspond with that.
Nice.
Yeah.
So back to the humor.
Yeah.
What's with this character, Polish ambassador, that uses a weird jumpsuit? What's with the jumpsuits? You even got jumpsuit records.
Yeah.
Where did that come from, and what does it mean?
So the jumpsuit. Okay, so this is kind of an addition to the story of the Polish ambassador name in the mixtape. So when I was making that early music, that chiptune 8-bit music, if you listen to it, it's fun, and it's like melodically it's well composed. I wouldn't say it's mixed that great because I was learning how to mix, but it's fun and it's goofy and it's like Super Nintendo style.
Yeah.
So for me, the visual accompaniment of that also needed to be fun and goofy. So I was with my friend Alex. I was living in Chicago at the time when I wrote those 2 records, and I was like, who is this? What is this guy? It's not me. It's not David. It's like there's a character here. And so we were at this thrift store one day, and in the corner of the store, I saw this old ski suit, like this old Swiss ski suit from. I think we saw that it was from Switzerland. It was like a XL women's ski suit, bright yellow and bright turquoise, and it had like this diagonal little pullover pocket. Yeah, super goofy. Yeah, and I put it on.
And superhero-ish at the same time.
Kind of superhero, yeah. So I put it on, and we were like, it was like that. It was like, oh, that's it. So I got that. I got like some white high top shoes. I put on headphones. I put on like these outer space sunglasses, and I was like kind of spaceman on Earth. Yeah. You know. And then we took a few photos in Chicago, with the Chicago skyline, and like back in the days of MySpace, you know, that was kind of when I got started, and like Facebook wasn't really a thing. Right. So we uploaded. When you could put music on your profile too. Yeah. So uploaded some music, put some photos, started a little blog. And the ambassador was born. Like I used to do blog posts, like chronicling my journeys in outer space. I don't really do the storytelling, other than I guess the graphic novel now is kind of a resurgence of that. But back when I got started, there was a whole storytelling arc to Polish Ambassador. It was fun. It was like an art comedy project for me.
So the Polish Ambassador is kind of some interdimensional, not interstellar character. Does he play music?
Well, I actually had an original story. He was a fractal of this being, some sort of other being that decided in its infinite wisdom that it needed to separate itself into like 8 billion pieces. And I was just one of the pieces that ended up landing on Earth.
Sounds like the story of all reality.
Yeah. So that was kind of.
So then that means I'm the Polish ambassador too. I like it. Yeah. That's awesome. And he dances.
Yeah.
He's got sweet dance moves.
If you say so.
It's like, yeah, I like it. And you show up to the shows, and you got the suit, and you got the wig, and then fans come with the suit. They feel like they're part of some kind of silly tribe. Yeah. I can vibe with that.
Yeah, no, I do it. And sometimes, you know, to be transparent, sometimes I wear the suit, sometimes I don't. Yeah. It kind of depends on how I'm feeling, and lately I haven't been. I've just been kind of dressed. Normally I'll wear like kind of a cool, bright 80s style shirt, but like the suit and the wig and all of that, it's like it comes maybe every couple years. I'm like, okay, it's a suit year, and we're bringing it back, and we're gonna so it's not all the time. Yeah, but it's fun.
Then you put yourself in a box that's just like, okay, this is becoming too rigid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So a character that so when you got back on Instagram, and I was paying attention, I think it was like a year ago or something. I was just starting to date Paulina, and I was like, check out this shit by Polish Ambassador. You were hanging out with this character called Future Gigi.
Oh, yeah.
And from what I perceived, he was a hitchhiking, horse-headed being, and you picked him up, and then you put a mushroom in his hand, and then you guys are walking, and you help him cross a river, and then you guys are dancing around super tripped out skies, and then he takes off the mask, and he's this dude with a mullet, and he's got sweet moves. I was like, what the fuck's going on here? What is this all about? Is he going to start bringing him up on stage? Does that have anything to do with the music performance? Are these just random skits? Yeah. What was that all about?
Nice. I'm glad you saw those. Yeah. That was an era. So Brian is like he's one of my best friends, and he lives in town here.
Okay.
So he comes and he does sort of tour management stuff with me.
Okay.
On the road. So
He's hilarious.
he's great. Yeah. I mean, you love him. You
Yeah.
might see him later today, actually.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, he and I was just kind of like, well, I don't want to do a photo. Let's mess around with these Instagram reels and let's see if we can do something fun. So
Yeah.
I just learned how to do them, and I was like, I would come up with these little storylines for us, and I was like, okay, go do that, and he would just kind of follow my instruction, and then I would put together these stupid little videos.
Uh-huh.
And I did that for like, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 months straight.
Yeah.
With Brian.
They're
And
great.
They're fun.
I love it. No, and
super
nobody else
fun.
is doing that. Like, DJs sometimes take themselves. Well, DJs, producer. What's the official?
Yeah.
You don't call you
Producers or composers, yeah.
You're not DJs anymore. But to me, it's just like, oh, it's a DJ. But they take themselves too seriously these days.
Yeah.
They don't like go out there and be silly and make psychedelic stories and shit. Like that's to me so rich and fun along the music.
Well, it's a lot of it's, you have to think about it in terms of relatability, right? Like a lot of these DJs do that because they want to appeal to a crowd that is that, right? Because most people take themselves seriously, right? So if you want to become a much bigger artist, you're probably going to need to present something that people can relate to.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like I'm an artist that maybe was never meant for mass production just because of who I am and the nature of my life experience and also what I want to put out there. So I think that like I want to put out something that's relatable to bring people like you into the fold, because then I'll have more fun. Right? Like I won't have fun if I look out and it's just like a bunch of people like
being all super cool.
Yeah,
like,
which is fine too. Like they, I'm okay with people.
Let people express themselves whatever the fuck they want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But here's a flavor of silliness.
It's a flavor. That's all it is. Yeah.
And we're just being ourselves. And I guess that's why I like what you present.
Yeah.
It's like, because I'm a goofy motherfucker too. Like my art's serious in what it's about. It's about God expressing through all humans, like I'm learning right now what you are doing. And there's a seriousness to like, the question of what we're doing here, in this reality. But at the same time, it's like, but if God's, expressing for all of us, can't we just fucking let loose and laugh a little bit and be a bunch of goofballs and be these kids that we grew up and, we are kids playing. You're playing your music. I'm doing my art. And, let's keep the vibes alive, in the way it resonates with us.
I know. I mean, you got to admit God has a good sense of humor, right? Like the more things I've done in my life that have been introspective and explorative internally, whether it's through meditation or through psychedelics or just solo bike journey up the coast, things like that. You kind of realize that like this life, we're here to learn something and we're here to share ourselves in a beautiful way, and it's all a big fucking cosmic joke too. It's like we're kind of, those things are both running in parallel.
Right.
Right.
Like one doesn't discredit the other.
Yeah, exactly.
At the end of the day, we can still laugh and be like, oh shit, it was just a play.
Yeah.
We're just playing around, playing a video game that felt so real. We're just like,
totally.
Gotta be like this. So would you feel that both your music and the expression besides the music has some kind of like psychedelic vibe to it? Is there a psychedelic influence in the music, or even in this like trippy character that runs around with goat-headed, beings?
Yeah, I think different people, different albums that I put out, some of them have like more of a psychedelic flavors. Some of them maybe don't. Yeah, I would say that psychedelics have definitely had an impact on my music, whether it's mushrooms, acid, ayahuasca. Like there's been quite a few journeys into my subconscious world that has definitely unearthed like some different ideas and different thoughts that then kind of maybe gestate over a period of time and come forth in a form of music. So yeah, that's one of those things. It's a question that I can give you that in a nutshell, but a lot of times it's like, as with psychedelic experiences, you may be in it, you don't actually understand quite what's happening, and maybe in my experience, like the main way to get the most out of them is to work to release control and let whatever message is coming through that medicine come through you in a way that maybe can allow some sort of realignment or healing or something that could allow you to bring forth something in form of creativity or a new idea or maybe just happiness, more sweetness, or all the good stuff, you know?
Like to surrender to what is and let that be what is, I guess, and be happy through that, or hopefully it becomes happy, or at least not unhappy about it.
Yeah.
What we say is some healing you've received through psychedelics, if any? I don't know if it's been a healing experience for you. It's not for everybody.
Yeah.
But is it something that's helped your life? Do you think it's something that's here to help humanity, or it's to each their own?
I don't really like to say anything is objectively helpful for all people, because I don't know. I don't know about that. And whenever, I just know that whenever I hear anything, whether it's religion, whether it's like someone that's a professor that's trying to teach something, whenever anybody speaks with that sort of objectivity, I tend to bring my attention elsewhere. So that kind of signals to me that I don't want to do that either. So, but what I will say is, for me, it's been really helpful, super helpful in understanding more about myself, understanding more about my patterns, and patterns that maybe are helpful, and then patterns that maybe aren't, and being able to analyze them and kind of be like, you know what, I'm going to work on that one right there. It doesn't seem to be helping anything. And also like opening up maybe new parts of my consciousness to welcome in like new styles of music, right? Like maybe that's part of my psychedelic exploration is the reason that I've jumped through so many different genres and will continue to.
Have you ever done any psychedelics and then started making music while under the influence, or you keep that separated?
I haven't, but I've definitely had I've had some psychedelics, and then for a period after made music for like the next week. So because we're always a bit closer to that experience like the few days after, right? Like sometimes I'm like, wait, what happened like 2 years ago when I had that hugely profound experience? Like, wait, was it actually that profound if I can't even remember? You know what I mean? But like we're always kind of...
It's still fresh in your memory.
It's still fresh. And
like
the
vibes are still influencing you a little bit.
Totally.
Yeah. Could you make music under influence, or you wouldn't even want to because you're like so affected?
Depends how much, right? Like if I had a little bit of LSD, easy. Sure, but normally it's like it's a bigger journey.
Right.
Yeah.
I spoke with Randon Rab recently, and he almost like it's part of his process to be under the influence and be on that state to then find his music.
I could see that. He's awesome. He's a trippy dude, and I could totally see that.
Right.
I'm not going to speak for, I don't know what he uses as medicine, but I love him, and
everybody's got their own process.
Everybody's got their own process.
Yeah. Like I try not to use psychedelics as a ghostwriter. It's like, oh, I got no ideas, but if I do this psychedelic, then I'll have the idea. I try not to use it at that intention.
Yeah.
More like, ooh, I need to heal in me, and then for a more healed state, I can express something. But probably there'll still be some influence from some degree of the visuals I might have tapped into there. Or,
Yep.
But so it's like a mix.
Yep.
So you say that you rather never push any personal perspectives on others, you to each their own. But do you believe there's such a thing as truth? Like if there's a truth that's the truth for everybody, or does everybody have their own personal truth and we gotta respect each other with that?
Good question. That's one that I might reflect on and send you a text down the road and be like, actually, this is the truth. In this moment, truth. It's almost like the only truth. It's kind of like one of those paradoxes feel like paradoxes are the only truth. It's like the only truth is that there is no truth for all of us. It's almost like what is. Like in kind of like a Buddhist way. It's like,
Right.
this
Or
moment is the only thing that's objectively true for all of us as individuals. And that's it.
Right. Or a Cartesian, like, I'm thinking, thus I know I exist. But that's pretty much all I'm sure of.
Yeah.
Everything is up for grabs.
But then you get into like, I'm not going to go full throttle on this, but you go into like, oh, well, some people think this is a simulation. And not not a simulation like we're in a game, but like a simulation in that like God is actually what's behind us, or whatever, use whatever term you need. Doesn't need to be God. And then kind of like you said, we're just in this video game.
Right.
And
well, the Emerald Tablet says that we are a dream of God, or we're in the mind of God. And it is manifesting this, and to us it's so fucking real, and there's time and there's space, but really in the end, once you get outside of it, you're like, oh, that is not. And that's how I feel when I do like Aya, and I go really deep. It almost seems like the physical reality is kind of like a little joke bubble that doesn't really matter that much, but it's a good place to experience some really awesome things.
Yeah.
So good just to stay in the state of gratitude for whatever is there.
I like that. The dream, that we're in the dream of God. That's cool. I never really thought about it like that.
Tell me a little bit about your graphic novel. This is something that came out like a year or two ago?
Yeah. It's called The Polish Ambassador to Space. Me and my friend James, like right before the pandemic, we were like, oh, what do you think about writing he actually approached me and was like, what do you think about turning Polish Ambassador into a graphic novel? And he had written a couple other graphic novels. So, and I was like, well, I'm pretty busy and pretty focused on these things. Like, how much of this can you take hold of, and how much of it can I just be like, once a week we get on the phone and I tell you about kind of this character? And he was basically on board to do the bulk of the work. So I highly credit James to being almost everything for that project, other than maybe, like I said, me getting on the phone and feeding him little insights, and then also providing music and a character.
Did you have to like pay him for that service, or was it like a collaboration where he was happy to do it because it was an exciting character and project?
It was a collaboration in a sense, and the agreement was that I would pay for all the costs associated with it, and
with printing.
Well, everything, illustration, like we hired everybody to like do it. Like, so James isn't an artist; he's just more of a project manager. So I hired.
Okay, so he hired an artist then.
Multiple artists. Like, there's a colorist is different from the person who does the line drawings, and everybody has a little bit of a different role in when you're creating a graphic novel. So my business basically paid for the whole project. James' work, I didn't pay him for his work. And then he's a partner on the project, if that makes sense. So, but it was an awesome process of getting to know James and like getting to create this outer space fictional reality. And then I wrote music specifically for that graphic novel. So it was cool. Yeah, I'm really happy to have done it. It's kind of one of those things that you're like, oh, cool, I made a graphic novel. Yeah. And like, it's like, check, right? Like, I imagine that if you haven't done something like that already, that might be a thing where it's like, you create a character and do some sort of like comic at some point.
Well, I'm learning from this. I used to draw comics when I first moved to Canada in the 90s. I loved cartoons and I wanted to be an animator, but first came me doing comics because all of a sudden I was in Canada and I had no friends, so to go to comic book shop and to buy Spider-Mans, and I was like, and so I was really into that vibe. But then I just moved on to fine arts. But now listening to you is like, oh yeah, like I got characters. Yeah. I just don't, I'm still working on the plot. Like, so my parallel to you would be my Galactic Gang NFT project. Like, I got a lot of characters and I got a general story written. Yeah. But I hadn't had the time to really like polish the book. Yep. because it's just a lot on my plate, and I'd have to like, just sit down there for a couple weeks. But to even turn it into a graphic novel could be fun, and maybe I should pick James's brain about it and see what would it take to have different artists, grab my art and do it in that style, because I just wouldn't have the time.
Yeah, that could be cool. I mean, having someone like James that can do that would probably be the thing that would help you carry a project like that to completion.
And what was the connection between this and your NFT project? Tell me about your NFT project.
Yeah, well, when we were finalizing the graphic novel, like NFTs all of a sudden had become this thing, and I released a couple audio NFTs on this platform called Catalog, which I imagine they're still going. Of course, that world is kind of all over the place, and maybe a little less interest now than there was back then. But as we were unveiling the graphic novel, I was talking with some of my Polish ambassador crew about having NFTs that were associated with the graphic novel. So we were like, yeah, let's create some cool NFTs that highlight aspects of the graphic novel. So we called them golden moments. So basically they're little frames from the graphic novel, and some of them are more rare than others. Yeah, and people got excited about it. We had some collaborations with you, and you helped us get word out about it. And
I bought one.
Yeah,
I got my Polish NFT, and I went to your party in Denver, and you're part of also My Galactic Gang movement, and you've performed in our virtual reality metaverse party a couple times.
Yeah.
So definitely there's a little community there. So there's like a community behind this NFT collection you've done, right?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there's a Discord, and got a Twitter, and there's some people that chime in on Facebook. Yeah, it's there. I think we're kind of calling it the Ambastronauts right now, though Ambastronauts was also sort of a fan club of mine in the past. But there's definitely a dedicated crew that's carrying it forward, and they seem to have a lot of fun. They do listening parties in the Discord and listen to Polish ambassador music and then other music and talk about it, and it's cool.
I love the community aspect of these NFT projects. Like, some people talk shit about NFTs, like, oh, it's a money grab, oh, it's a rug pull, oh, these are just JPEGs and it means nothing, and crypto is a lie, and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of like shit talk to it. But as somebody who's actually gotten into it and invested and done an offering, how do you feel about it?
Well, I think that there's truth to a lot of that there are money grabs, and there is gambling, and like I didn't make any money off of my NFT project. Like, it's all still in this fund, kind of waiting to see what happens. So I think it depends on the project, the intentions, the crew involved. But yeah, like crypto in its current state and NFT, like, it's cool and progressive, and it's got a lot of holes. I think we all see that it could be something really special, and it probably is the future. But it seems to me that some things really need to tighten up before more people are going to be willing to adopt it as something that's worth their time and energy.
Right.
There's just so much theft.
It just can't go up and down.
No.
And become so unstable.
Yeah.
But it also could be that decentralized option for a new currency that gives away from the Babylon financial system.
It could be. In my opinion, what will change that is, like, people like my parents will have a crypto account because it's safe, because they can put the money in there that they've earned for like 40 years of working hard and not feel like it's going to go away. Then once that happens, everything will change probably overnight.
Right, because maybe it might go up and down, but it'll always be an amount of crypto without a bank all the time, like, folding.
No one wants to put their energy and money in, especially when people are working so hard these days, into something that is such a gamble. Some people do, and some people that know how to gamble will make money, because it is there's definitely a gambling aspect to any market that has high volatility, right? It's just, that's kind of what gambling is. But like, in the meantime, focus in on the community aspects of it, and like, let's just wait and be patient for things to tighten up a little bit, and crypto could be really, really cool. you know?
Yeah, agreed. So I think it's just the beginning.
Yeah.
And I feel things will get better. I don't see it disappearing and just being like, oh yeah, we did crypto for a couple of years and then we got over it. No, it's for sure gonna grow, but it might just take some time. And being there at the beginning, at the dawn of something, it's special.
Totally.
Yeah, like to do a new technology and connect with people all around the world on a new kind of platform for me was super interesting. And yeah, I don't think it's dead yet.
Nah.
It's just the ups and downs of the world. Like right now, fucking, there's ups and downs with everything.
Yeah, totally.
So do you fuck with politics at all? Like, do you pick a side and are against the other side? Or are you with nobody? Or are you with everybody? Like, how do you observe the world right now? It's become a world that's becoming so divided and polarized. And where do you stand in all of this?
Yeah, I don't really like I would say my politics find their way into maybe previous conversations that we had, maybe relating to spirituality or something. I don't really like to use those terms, or specifically that term spirituality. But what I would say is, like, the things that I tend to move away from are people that have ideas and they're speaking about them as objective truths, whether it's in the Democratic side or the Republican or the conservative side. Like, if anybody says, well, it's just like this, it's like, well, clearly it's not, because 50% of the population disagrees with you. So, like, let's start there. Let's stop speaking in objectives and let's get into more maybe like long form conversation where we can actually understand each other. And then maybe you'll change my mind because we had a chance to sit down and talk about something in a non-objective way. That's like, oh, this is my experience, this is yours. Like, cool. Like, how do we meet in the middle on this?
Right, because in the end, we all just want the same thing.
Yeah,
we all just want to be able to live in some degree of comfort and not discomfort.
Yeah, so it's like for me, I have friends all across the board. I don't have like friends that are my community's not just Democrat. It's not just Republican. It's like, I like all people, and I don't really consider myself either, but I share different views that are on both sides at this point. And I'm willing to have those views changed as well through like a conversation that's where I can hear and understand something from somebody.
Right, you're open-minded. And you can't just demonize the other side as like, we're the good ones and they're the bad ones. No. It's like, really? Half the population's evil?
Yeah, no.
They really want to destroy it?
That's where it gets tricky. That's where I don't want to say anybody is evil, but that's where, again, I will remove my energy from a conversation. Like, if we were sitting here and you were speaking in objectives to me, I probably would have left the interview already. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, that's the one thing that to me feels like is, if there is one problem, it's that. It's saying that, well, this is just how it is.
This is the truth, and you got to believe it.
It's like, you don't, anybody that wants to play God like that, they shouldn't be in charge of anything.
Do you feel there's any chance that these two sides could unite at any point? To some degree, enough to really stop fighting and coming together and creating solutions that go past the corporate control that seems to have a grasp on the world.
Yeah, I do think that. I think like just the advent of podcasts is sort of symbolic that we're moving in a direction, right? Where you have a lot of like, think about 10 years ago, like podcasts. I mean, maybe you listen to a podcast like occasionally on, but probably not. And now everybody I know has like a whole list of podcasts that they're listening to weekly, right? And like, information is being disseminated in a way different way right now than it ever has been through long form conversations where people are getting together with potentially different views, and they're starting to see eye to eye. And I think having more media like that and having more channels, like maybe in the future, like TV, you'll turn on NBC and it will be a 3-hour long form discussion, right? Like, if something like that happened in the next 5 years, imagine the impact.
Right.
Imagine like two presidential candidates talking to each other for 3 hours rather than these little like 2-second sound bites. Like, you're an idiot, you're old, you're stupid. You know what I mean? Like, Imagine what could change with just something as simple as that.
Well, that's so great that there's finally this option where people are having a conversation that's a little bit longer, and you can really feel the vibe of somebody in these conversations.
Yeah.
Because it's not like something that's rehearsed. It's like the person making the questions might make you a question that you gotta think, and you can see the person's process of finding their truth and also admitting that they don't know all the answers. And,
Yeah.
And then you can maybe allow yourself to trust some people more. I would like to trust more people who are trying to get into leader positions.
Yeah.
They're just the good ones are hard to find, I guess. But this conversation, for example, I don't want to like give away my politics, but lately I've been listening more and more to Bobby Kennedy Jr.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, wow, here's a guy who's kind of like talking a little bit. He's not just like, I'm this thing and fuck the others. He's talking different points. And I'm like, finally somebody who's talking my language.
Totally.
And I enjoy hearing him speak, even though that voice is kind of like, abrasive. I enjoy what he's saying over many hours and understanding his intention. So, but he won't get on normal TV. And mainstream TV is like, oh, that guy is evil and this and that.
I mean, what would be, how crazy would it be if or what would change, hypothetically, if someone was able to win the presidency without even being on mainstream TV? That signals to me that like there's new routes and new ways of communicating that potentially could do this thing that you're talking about, where people can see more eye to eye. Because if he did win, it would probably be because he found out how to have long form conversations.
But people, as you're saying, are tuning more into that, and they're finding more truth in that, and they're seeing the BS in the mainstream. And I think he's got a chance. And once again, politics are politics. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm also fooled, and who cares at the end of the day? But just change is good, because the corporations own everything, and it's just being always just lie after lie after puppet. And I want real change, not the appearance of change. And then you get him in, and it's the same fucking story.
Totally.
And humanity, I think, is ready for something new, and perhaps these proper conversations help.
Yeah, I think so.
Do you feel musicians like yourself contribute to adding a positive vibration that could bring healing to some aspects of humanity, or at least to their immediate communities?
Oh yeah, totally. Like, I mean, even for me personally, I think that because I've had that experience, right? Again, I don't try to objectively speak about anything, but like, of course, if we have that experience ourselves, we think that at least there's got to be a few people out there that could have a similar experience, right? But yeah, I mean, just going, I went to Lightning in a Bottle festival. A lot of times when I go to a festival, like I'm playing maybe another festival the next night, so I'm like in and out, so I don't really get to experience it that much. It's like, I have fun, but it's my work, right? Right. So this past Lightning in a Bottle, I got a bunch of friends on the guest list, and we went down and we stayed for 4 nights. And I had
party.
Oh my gosh, I had so much fun, and it was such a great feeling to connect with friends and like deepen bonds with friends and make new ones, and how much like ununderstood like healing happens. We don't really know the healing that happens when we have those sort of maybe whatever sacred moments of like bonding with other humans, right? And like sharing a really cool experience, or like having like a 4-hour dance party with your best friends. Like who knows what's actually going on in our bodies that's probably helpful, right? Not only for our body, but then once our body heals in a certain way, like you're vibrating at a different vibration, and people are feeling that, and maybe you're impacting them now. So yeah, I mean, a lot of that's just art. Like you go to a festival like LIB, and those guys are the guys that put that on are buds of mine, and they're artists, right? So they're creating this amazing container, and then you plug in music, which is also like the individual art from maybe like people like myself and other artists. So you have like this layered art on top of each other, and it just creates this wild experience for people to interact and celebrate and hang with each other.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
What's some performers you caught out there, or performers that you've been fans of? lately?
At that festival?
Sure, there, or who's somebody you're stoked on?
Let's see. I saw this guy named Mind Chatter out there. I was like, oh, that was cool. I had never heard of him before. This guy Tropo, I caught his set. He's does like electronic and plays violin.
Okay.
And what's that big act that was really fun? It's the guy and the girl, Sophie Tucker.
Okay.
Sophie Tucker. They were really fun.
Nice.
It's like really high energy and yeah, just like party. It was good. It was a good party.
Yeah, you had a good time.
I did. I had a good time.
Yeah, sick.
Yeah.
Well, David, thank you so much for having me over your house and having this awesome conversation. Before we say goodbye, is there any final words of wisdom or anything you'd like to share with the people watching? You don't like to tell people what to think, but if anything, that's almost like your message. Don't tell others what to think.
Yeah, just do you. Don't harm others. I don't know. Explore what it feels like to spend a portion of your life being rather than thinking you need to do all the time. And reach out if you need to reach out to friends and have fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Thanks,
man.
buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, love you, dude.
Yeah. Love you too. And I love you guys too. And thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Chris Dyer's Creative Friends. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that boring stuff that you don't want to do, but you love me so much, you're going to do it anyways. And I'll see you next time. Blessings. Woo. Next episode, Ashley Josephine Foreman.
I think that the spirituality in tattooing is in the tattooing, and it's more something that moves through you and not something that you're responsible for like doing to another. I'd say becoming a tattooer and working with tattoo has been a very refining process of mastery in yourself, learning boundaries, learning perception, learning listening, learning connection and social skill, learning right livelihood, learning integrity, learning to listen to that voice inside. And like, there's something in that.
So please make sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Big thanks, and see you next episode. Peace.